My name is Lu Ding. I'm 19 years old, a freshman in the geology department at Yunhai University, and I have a secret. I'm a transmigrator. For 20 years, I've carried a mysterious, monster containment prison inside my mind. But it's been dormant since the day I was born. I've been waiting for a spark, a sign that the world isn't as ordinary as it looks. Summer break hit, and I needed two things: an internship report and money. Being a transmigrator usually comes with the orphan starter pack, and I was no exception. Between government subsidies and scholarships, I survived, but I was broke. When I saw a recruitment ad for a geological surveyor offering 8,000 yuan a month, I jumped at it. The ad mentioned a bonus for special talents. To most, that meant architecture or surveying skills. To those in the know, it meant feng shui. I wasn't a materialist. You can't be one when you've literally crossed worlds. I spent years studying ancient texts on metaphysics, ghosts, and spirits. If my internal prison was meant for monsters, then monsters had to exist. I needed to be ready to strike when I finally found one. I called the number. The man on the other end had a thick accent, but when I mentioned my talents, he invited me for an interview immediately. I walked into that project manager's office and started talking about feng shui, burial taboos, and dragon veins. I cited ancient scriptures until the room went silent. I skipped the fortune-telling part. I didn't want to get caught in a lie if they asked for a demonstration. I got the job on the spot. I worked hard for a month. Just as payday approached, things got weird. It was near quitting time when the crew unearthed a massive stone. The terrifying part? Where the stone was chipped, a thick, red liquid was oozing out. It looked exactly like blood. The workers were terrified. I rushed to the scene, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was it. Project manager Luo Omping was there, surrounded by a crowd of people whispering and pointing. He grabbed my arm the moment he saw me. "Lu Ding, you know about this stuff," he whispered, his face pale. "What the hell is this?" I'd read about bleeding stones in a dozen ancient books, but seeing one was different. I didn't want to waste time cross-referencing legends. I grabbed a heavy-duty impact drill from a nearby worker. My blood was pumping. "Whatever it is," I said, a grin spreading across my face. "If it bleeds, it can be killed." I had waited 20 years for this. If this was a monster, I was going to end it right here. "Stop. You can't," the workers shouted, rushing to pull me back. "It's a taboo. You'll bring a curse on us." "It might be a Tai Sui," one old man yelled. "My grandfather said Tai Sui is a fierce god. It's better to provoke the king of hell than to touch one of these. Bury it back." I looked at them, then at Luo Onping. "We're on a schedule," I said firmly. "If this stone delays the project, who's taking the fall?" Silence. Nobody wanted the blame. Luo Onping looked trapped. He hated this stuff, but he hated losing money more. I leaned in and added fuel to the fire. "Manager Luo, they're setting you up to take the blame. Just give the word." "I've got a hard fate. Spirits can't touch me. I'm not afraid." That was the nudge he needed. If I was the one doing the drilling, the bad luck would hit me, not him. He gritted his teeth and nodded. "Drill it." I didn't wait. I revved the impact drill and stepped forward. The workers scrambled back, watching me with a mix of awe and pure terror. I pressed the bit against the stone and pulled the trigger. Thud, 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 thud. The drill bit tore into the surface. Dark red liquid sprayed out, splashing across my clothes. I felt a surge of adrenaline. Behind me, Luo Onping was already muttering about giving me a 10,000 yuan bonus for my bravery. But I didn't care about the money. "Come on," I thought, staring at the stone. Asterisk work, you damn prison. Give me a reaction. Asterisk. Suddenly, a large chunk of the stone casing cracked and fell away. The crowd gasped. Embedded in the sphere were two tightly shut eyelids. They weren't carvings. They were real. Before anyone could scream, the eyes snapped open. The workers lost it. They shrieked about ghosts and demons, tripping over each other as they bolted for the exit. But I stayed. I didn't move an inch. I just stared into those ancient, waking eyes and smiled. Finally, the hunt had begun. Even Luo Onping, the manager, was terrified. He started to run, but then he saw me standing there, unmoved. He hesitated, his face twisting with conflict, before he doubled back and grabbed my arm. "Lu Ding, let's go. This thing is a monster. Don't stop me." I snapped, shaking his hand off. Let me drill this thing to death. I didn't give him a chance to argue. I revved the impact drill and slammed it straight into those newly opened eyes. Blood sprayed everywhere, soaking my clothes and face. The stone sphere let out a high-pitched, unnatural shriek that echoed through the tunnel. I actually smiled. It was a monster. There was no doubt about it now. Normal rocks don't bleed, and they definitely don't scream. It was trapped and immobile. If I didn't kill it now, when would I get another chance? I had waited over 10 years for this. 10 years of living in this world, preparing for the moment my cheat would finally activate. While everyone else was paralyzed by fear, I was ready. I'd spent years desensitizing myself by watching the most graphic horror movies I could find, all to make sure I wouldn't flinch when the real thing appeared. Luo Amping stood behind me, stunned. He saw my resolve and somehow found a shred of courage. He stopped running. He figured if he was going to see something this crazy once in a lifetime, he might as well stay behind the guy who actually knew how to handle it. The stone screams grew louder until, crack, the sphere split clean in half. In my mind, I heard the sound of pages flipping. A book titled The Monster Containment Registry appeared in my consciousness. Target contained, Nanshan Maru's Stone, Unborn. Reward, Path of the Golden Carriage. A wave of warmth flooded my body. I could feel raw power surging through my veins, an indescribable sensation of strength. Finally, after a decade of struggle, I had unlocked the true use of my system. I dropped the drill and sat on the ground, breathing hard. I thought back to how difficult things had been. I was an orphan with nothing. I'd been working and studying simultaneously since I was 14, barely surviving on meager subsidies. If it weren't for the hope of this system, I might have given up a long time ago. Luo Amping walked over, his hands shaking so much he could barely light a cigarette. He finally got it lit and handed it to me. Lu Ding, I've seen some tough guys in my 30 years, but you're the most ruthless person I've ever met. I took a long drag and exhaled a cloud of smoke. Manager Luo, can I get a bonus for this? Bonus? I'm giving you a massive one, he said quickly. I'll count your salary as 20,000 yuan for this month. I'm transferring it now. My phone buzzed. 20,000 yuan. Between the money in my pocket and the power in my soul, I finally felt a sense of security. I recognized the name of the creature now, the Nanshan Maru Stone. It wasn't a legend from this world, but from my previous life. It was a spirit mentioned in ancient texts, a stone that would eventually take the form of an old man and trick people. In the legends, it sought the path of the golden carriage, which was a play on words for execution. I had gotten lucky. I had killed it before it was even born. If it had reached its full potential, 100 versions of me wouldn't have been enough to stop it. But I had one. Now, with a single thought, I could feel a sharp, cutting energy ready to be unleashed. I just needed a place to test its power. I finished my cigarette and looked at the broken shards of the stone. I didn't know if they were still useful, but I wasn't going to waste them. I grabbed a wheelbarrow and loaded the fragments inside. Luo Amping watched me, confused, but he was smart enough not to ask questions. You want to take a couple of days off? He asked. Yeah, I replied. I'll head out. Call me when things quiet down here. Of course, I had no intention of coming back. I only worked here to survive. Now that my path was clear, my goal was to find more monsters. My life was never going to be ordinary again. I went back to the dorms, dumped all my clothes out of my suitcase, and packed the stone fragments inside instead. I headed straight for my cheap rental apartment, a small place that cost me 300 yuan a month. Right after I left the site, two people in tactical gear, a man and a woman, burst into Luo Amping's office. They flashed badges from a high-level government agency. Where is the object? And where is the person who found it? The man demanded. Luo Amping tried to play dumb at first. What object? I don't know what you're slam. A black handgun hit the desk. Are you going to talk? Luo Amping hit the floor in a perfect slide, begging for mercy. He told them everything and showed them the high-definition security footage. The two agents watched the video of me drilling into the eye, then looked at each other in pure shock. Without a word, they turned to leave. Keep your mouth shut about this, the woman warned. You don't want to find out what our interrogation rooms feel like. Understood. Crystal clear. Luo Amping forced a smile until they were gone. He sighed, looking toward the door. Sorry, Brother Lu. It's not that I didn't want to help you. I just didn't dare. Meanwhile, I arrived at my old apartment complex. I'd lived here for 5 years. It was a dump, but the rent was cheap. I looked up at the building one last time, feeling a bit sentimental. But it was time to move on. My real journey was just beginning. Because of my unique background and top-tier grades, the social services department had assigned me a small government-subsidized apartment after I left the orphanage. It was a simple one-bedroom place that cost me 300 yuan a month. I'd lived here until now because I was broke, but things had changed. I had money now, and I knew I wouldn't be lacking it in the future. I didn't want to hog state resources that other people desperately needed. These low-income units were scarce, and plenty of families were waiting for a spot. It was time for me to find a better environment. Tonight was my last night in room 1503. I felt a strange mix of emotions as I walked through the door. I kicked off my shoes and took a hot shower, washing away the exhaustion of the day. Finally, I opened my suitcase and pulled out the fragments of the Wanshur stone. I studied them closely. Aside from some lingering bloodstains, they looked like ordinary rocks. I wondered what they were actually for. Medicine? Forging weapons? Those were the only two answers that came to mind. I stared at them until my eyes hurt, but nothing magical happened. I gave up for the night and headed to the balcony to pack my clothes for tomorrow's move. As I reached for a shirt, something caught my eye. Down in the bamboo grove behind the apartment complex, a dark figure was standing still. I froze. The figure was looking straight back at me. Our eyes locked across the distance. Before I could even process what was happening, the figure raised a hand. It started pointing, moving its finger from the ground level upward, one floor at a time. It was counting. It was counting exactly which floor I lived on. I couldn't believe the nerve of this guy. I had just unlocked my golden finger powers, and someone was already being this blatant? Was he coming for a fight? A robbery? I felt a surge of irritation. I wasn't about to be intimidated in my own home. I dropped the clothes I was holding and leaned over the railing. "Stop counting, you bastard," I yelled. "I'm in 1503. Come up here if you've got the guts." I was actually looking for a way to test the power of my golden fingers slash attacks. If someone wanted to deliver themselves to my doorstep, who was I to refuse? But a second later, I realized my judgment was off. That thing wasn't human. Instead of being scared, I felt a rush of excitement. As soon as I shouted, the figure in the bamboo grove bolted toward my building. It was incredibly fast, covering several meters in a single stride. In the dim glow of the streetlights, I caught a glimpse of long, matted fur fluttering behind it. No human could grow hair like that. The long-haired monster ducked into the back entrance of the building and vanished. I felt my blood pumping. For 19 years, I hadn't seen a single supernatural thing, and now two popped up in one day? If they were this common, why did I have to wait nearly 2 decades to find them? I knew I couldn't stay in the apartment. It was too small to fight in. I quickly threw on my shoes and ran into the hallway. I wanted to move the battlefield to the stairs where I had more room to move. I stood by the stairwell and looked down. A dark shadow was screaming up the stairs at a terrifying speed. The voice-activated lights flickered on one by one. 10th floor, 11th, 12th, 13th. My adrenaline spiked. The moment the lights on the 14th floor flashed on, I raised my hand. I unleashed a slash. The air turned sharp, a transparent blade of energy tearing through the space. It slammed into the iron handrail, slicing through the metal like it was soft butter and leaving deep gouges in the mottled old walls. The light revealed the monster fully. It had been slammed back against the wall by the force of my attack, knocking plaster loose. A deep gash ran across its chest, from its shoulder down to its ribs. But there was no blood. There was no bone or flesh inside. Instead, I saw a mass of tangled vines and countless tiny tentacles writhing within the wound. It stood over 2 meters tall, draped in long, black hair. It wasn't bulky, it was lean and wiry. Its face was a withered mask, and its eyes glowed with a haunting yellow light like 2 dim light bulbs. It looked hideous, but I could handle it. The monster looked up at me, and I saw the same thing in its eyes that was in mine: excitement. "I thought you were something special," I muttered. "Turns out you're just rushing to your death. Let's see if your neck is as tough as your chest." I fired off another slash without warning. The monster sensed the danger and ducked, but it wasn't fast enough. The top of its skull was sliced clean off. It let out a horrific shriek that echoed through all 15 floors of the building. Downstairs, the two agents from earlier had just arrived at the complex. They heard the scream and shared a sharp look. Something was wrong. They bolted toward the entrance, their boots cracking the pavement with every step. Suddenly, a massive black shape fell from the sky and crashed heavily onto the ground in front of them. They stared in shock. It was the monster, covered in black fur and riddled with deep blade marks. The once ferocious beast was now gasping for air, struggling to crawl away. It looked terrified, as if something far more monstrous than itself was still up there. Running. You want to run now? My voice echoed from above. Where was that energy earlier? I sent another slash down. The monster, which was already struggling to stand, was instantly cut in half. Its upper body tumbled away while its legs remained standing in place. The two agents looked up. They saw a small, dark figure. Me, leaping from balcony to balcony, using the ledges to break my fall before landing lightly on the pavement. As I landed, a sharp breeze kicked up, stinging their faces like tiny knives. I looked at the monster. It was in 4 pieces now. A notification flashed in my mind. Asterisk monster subdued. Reward, position of the vanishing vision, asterisk. The name triggered a flood of memories. I recognized it from ancient texts like the Huainanzi and the Anilex. Some described it as a water demon or a mountain spirit that ate people. But the reward I received was a state of being, the unity of heaven and man. It was a heightened state of consciousness that most people could only reach by accident. Now, I could trigger it whenever I wanted. This was a massive win. I turned around and saw the two agents watching me. They were visibly shaken. Finding the stone might have been luck, but brutally dismantling a monster like this was pure strength. Even for them, a creature like that would have been a difficult fight. The man stepped forward, his voice cautious but polite. You're Lu Ding, right? I looked at them. I'd noticed them earlier, but I'd been a bit busy. I'm Lu Ding. Who are you? I'm Zhou Jia, the man said with a friendly smile. And this is Long Shan Shan. We're intern investigators from the 749 Bureau. We came to talk to you about what happened at the construction site earlier. Maybe we could find somewhere more private to chat? The 749 Bureau. I knew that name. In both my lives, that name was shrouded in mystery and urban legend. It was the kind of organization people whispered about, but could never prove existed. And now, they were standing right in front of me. I never expected anyone from the 749 Bureau to show up at my door. I looked at them for a moment, then nodded. Let's talk at my place, I said. I turned around, intending to collect my trophies from the fight. But when I looked at the ground, the 4 pieces of the monster were gone. I blinked, confused. That was a Mu Wong, Long Shan Shan explained, seeing my expression. It's a wood-based spirit. Once they die, they dissolve back into the earth. I didn't know that. A wave of regret hit me. If I could have kept the body, it might have been useful for something later. Zhou Jia and Long Shan Shan watched me, their eyebrows twitching. They had read my file on the way here. On paper, I was just a high-achieving student, a bit mature for my age because of my background, but otherwise a total commoner. But my behavior today was anything but normal. Most people would be traumatized after facing a monster with a power drill and getting covered in blood. I had looked excited. And now, after brutally dismantling a spirit, my only reaction to its disappearance was disappointment that I couldn't keep the corpse. They looked at me like I was the real monster. We walked back to my house. When they saw the fragments of the Nanshan stone sitting in my living room, they both winced. Lu Ding, Zhou Jie said, his voice serious. You can't just leave those stones out in the open. Why not? I asked. Because it's the essence of heaven and earth, he explained. It's the same category as things like the Lingji or the Tai Sui. It's a massive magnet for spirits and demons. That Mu Wong from earlier? It was probably drawn here by the scent of these stones. My eyes lit up. Wait, really? There are more of them. If these stones acted like bait, I wanted to carry them around in my pockets all day. I was itching for more monsters to hunt for rewards. Long Shan Shan saw the look in my eyes and panicked. Don't even think about it. A Mu Wong is a minor threat. If you attract something truly terrifying, you won't be able to fight it, and you definitely won't be able to run. I sighed and gave up on that idea. I wanted rewards, but I wasn't suicidal. I packed the stone fragments away, and we all sat down. Zhou Jie pressed a button on a recorder pinned to his chest. Let's begin, he said. Lu Ding, we want to know. Did you awaken while you were killing the Nanshan stone? Awaken? I repeated. I wasn't sure what he meant. Zhou Jie was patient. He explained that people like them were called chi refiners, similar to the cultivators in web novels. In this world, there were no spiritual roots. It was all about innate talent. You either had it or you didn't. Most talented people lived normal lives until they were triggered by extreme stress or a ritual. The ritual is also called opening the aperture, he said. It uses treasures from heaven and earth to turn a hidden talent into an active one. During that process, there's a small chance you can absorb the abilities of the object used for the ritual. The blood and core of the Nanshan stone are top-tier treasures. Your slashing ability likely came from absorbing the stone's essence. Plus, you probably have an innate talent of your own. Have you noticed it? I stayed silent, letting him finish. This was perfect. He was handing me a logical explanation for my powers on a silver platter. It would make explaining future rewards much easier. Is it possible to absorb more talents later on? I asked, testing the waters. Impossible, Zhou Jie said firmly. That only happens during the initial awakening. After that, your foundation is set. You can still learn spells and techniques through study, but they won't be as natural as an innate ability. I nodded, playing along. Then I guess I've awakened. Zhou Jie and Long Shanshan shared a look of envy. Using a Nanshan stone to awaken was incredibly lucky. Even though the odds of absorbing its ability were tiny, I had clearly succeeded. That made me a dual talent user right out of the gate. It explained why my combat power was so terrifyingly high for a rookie. There are two ways the 749 Bureau handles people like you, Zhou Jie said, moving to the main point. Option 1. Join us. You'd start as an intern investigator. Once you complete 10 missions or capture 10 monsters, you become a full member. Interns make 30,000 yuan a month. Full members get 50,000, plus full benefits and bonuses for every mission. You'd also get access to cultivation manuals, resources, and teachers. It's like joining a sect. Plus, you get perks like a firearm permit and the authority to command local departments in emergencies. He paused, watching my reaction. Option 2. You don't join. You just promise not to hurt anyone, report to us once a month, and agree never to leave the country. The choice was obvious. I felt a sense of loyalty to this country anyway. It had provided me with a home and an education through subsidies when I had nothing. A high-paying government job with cultivation resources was exactly what I needed. You mentioned cultivation, I said. How does that work? Everyone who awakens can become a chi refiner, Zhou Jie explained. But you need techniques and resources. Those are strictly controlled by the Bureau and a few private sects. If you join us, your first basic manual is free. After that, you earn contribution points through missions to buy better stuff. I didn't hesitate. I'm in. I'll join the 749 Bureau. I had the vanishing vision skill, which allowed for the unity of heaven and man. It would be a waste not to cultivate. Zhou Jie's smile widened until he couldn't hide it. The Bureau gave out massive bonuses to anyone who recruited a high-talent newcomer. By signing me up, he had just hit the jackpot. Zhou Jie wasn't just guessing. He had seen it with his own eyes. A guy who had just awakened his powers had absolutely slaughtered a wood king. That kind of talent was terrifying. On top of that, I was a dual talent user. Zhou Jie couldn't even imagine the massive reward he'd get for bringing me in. I packed my few belongings into a suitcase and followed him to the car. We were heading straight to the 749 Bureau. It had been a long night, and I'd already moved between two different locations. Before we pulled away, I looked back at the apartment building. What about the hallway? I asked. I pretty much trashed the place. Don't worry about it, Zhou Jie replied, waving a hand dismissively. A cleanup crew will handle everything. It'll look better than it did before we arrived. That was a relief. As we drove out of the city, I watched the scenery blur past the window. The drive felt long. Is the Bureau really this far from the city? I wondered aloud. What if something happens back there? We have people on duty every day, Zhou Jie explained. Xiao Shan and I were covering that construction site area today. If something comes up that we can't handle, we report it, and they send in the heavy hitters. It made sense. If I could think of it, the Bureau definitely had it covered. Eventually, the car entered a long tunnel. When we emerged on the other side, the world had changed. We were in a massive base tucked away inside a hidden valley. I looked around, feeling like a kid in a candy store. I followed the two of them into a large hall to register my information and answer a barrage of questions. Finally, we reached a small door. Zhou Jie and Long Shanshan waved goodbye. As soon as I disappeared inside, Long Shanshan turned to Zhou Jie. "Are we waiting for him?" she asked. "No," Zhou Jie said, shaking his head. "From now on, he's in a different world than us. We won't be walking the same path. Besides, we still have our patrol sector to look after. We're busy. Just making a good first impression is enough." He was a realist. He knew our ranks were about to be very different. It was better to part ways now and just keep things friendly if we crossed paths later. Inside, a staff member led me down a hallway that looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. The walls were made of transparent glass. Behind them, I saw rows of monster specimens. They were hauntingly lifelike. Some were tiny, others were massive. Some looked hideous and terrifying, while others possessed a strange, elegant beauty. I felt a surge of excitement. If I had been the one to kill all these things, the rewards would have been insane. It was almost a waste to see them just sitting there. We reached a room, and the staff member swiped a card to open the door. "Mr. Liu, please rest here for a bit," he said. "It's past midnight now, which means it's the first day of the new month. The interns who joined last month will be having their official evaluation and registration this morning. You can go watch and observe. It'll help you prepare for your own evaluation next month." I stopped him before he could leave. "What exactly is this evaluation?" "Every newcomer has to go through it," he explained. "It happens on the first of every lunar month. It mostly tests your combat strength. Based on the results and your performance, you're assigned a rank. It helps us organize missions and avoid unnecessary deaths. It also determines your benefits." He broke it down for me. Average performers got an 8-person dorm and weren't allowed to take monster capture missions until they improved. Good performers got a 4-person dorm and a special muscle-strengthening tonic. Excellent performers got a 2-person dorm and a pill to help open their spiritual apertures. "And the perfect performers?" I asked. "They get a private room," he said. "They receive an aperture pill to safely open all their points and jump straight into the profound realm. They can take solo missions immediately. After 10 successful captures, they become full members." He smiled at me. "Since you just joined, you have a whole month to practice your cultivation techniques and prepare for the next round. You have plenty of time." A whole month? I couldn't wait that long. That was a total waste of time. Suddenly, I had an idea. "Wait," I said, my eyes brightening. "I arrived at the base before midnight, right? Doesn't that mean I technically joined last month? Can I take the test tomorrow morning?" The staff member looked at me like I hadn't heard a word he said. "I mean, you could, but rushing into it is a bad idea. Even with dual talents, you just awakened. My advice is to settle in, learn the techniques, and try next month when you're at your best. Plus, you're already staying in a private room during your provisional phase." I shook my head. No, I don't need to settle in. "Is there a sign-up sheet?" "If there is, sign me up now. I'm going tomorrow." I had waited 19 years for my system to unlock. Now that I was in the bureau, where monsters were basically served on a silver platter, there was no way I was sitting around for 30 days. I could learn the techniques after the test. The staff member was speechless. Most people begged for more time to get stronger before being judged. This guy couldn't wait a single second. "Fine," he sighed. "I'll sign you up. Here is your bureau smartphone. It has the internal app. You can log in to view your profile and read the archives." Once he left, I flopped onto the bed and opened the app. I was like a dry sponge soaking up water. I spent the night diving into the secrets of this hidden world. I learned the cultivation ranks: Aperture, Profound, Spirit Sea, Divine Power, Life Command, and Heavenly Observation. There were probably more, but my clearance wasn't high enough to see them yet. I also read about countless monsters and rare treasures. I even found an entry on the Nanshan round stone I had taken from the monster. It was a spirit class item. The red liquid inside was concentrated earth chi, perfect for opening apertures. The stone itself was a rare material for forging weapons. "It really is a treasure," I muttered. I wondered what kind of weapon I should make with it. With that thought drifting through my mind, I finally fell asleep. The next morning, my alarm buzzed. I washed up and followed a new staff member through a maze of corridors until we reached the evaluation hall. The place was packed. The roar of the crowd hit me before I even stepped inside. I pushed forward to see what was happening. The evaluation hall was massive, about the size of a football field, and sunken several meters into the ground. Dozens of people were scattered across the floor. Around the edges, a huge crowd of men and women, young and old, watched from the stands. They carried all sorts of weapons, sabers, spears, swords, and halberds. The air was thick with the sound of their chatter. "It's a shame," one man said near me. I joined on the 16th, which gave me only 14 days before the test. I ended up with an average score. If I'd had more time, I could have done great. "You think you had it bad?" another grumbled. I joined on the 23rd. That month only had 29 days. I barely scraped by with an average grade. "If I'd started as early as you, I'd be at the top right now." "Luck is part of strength," a third voice chimed in. "There are 8 newcomers who joined before the 5th this month. I bet they'll all get excellent, or even perfect scores." "Excellent, maybe. But perfect isn't something you get just by having an extra week. If it were that easy, the Bureau's aperture pills would be as common as cabbage." I listened closely. Someone asked who had the best shot at a perfect score. "Lu Yun, for sure," a spectator replied. "She has a demon blade and awakened an invisibility talent. She can move through shadows. The monsters won't even touch her before she cuts them down." "Lu Yun is a good pick," another added. "She got here on the 10th of last month, so she's had plenty of time." Then there's Chu Hao. He's her classmate and arrived the same day. He has vine armor and would control. This arena is full of shepherd monsters. It's his home turf. His only weakness is his killing speed. I realized I knew those names. They were from my university. We were all in the same ancient-style club. Chu Hao was a freshman like me, though he studied economics while I was in geology. Lu Yun was a junior, the club president, and a famous beauty on campus. Small world. I didn't plan on a reunion, though. I turned to the staff member opening the gate for me. "How exactly is the scoring defined?" "The test lasts 1 hour," he explained. 10 kills is a pass. 11 to 40 is average. 41 to 70 is good. 71 to 99 is excellent. If you kill 100 or more in an hour, that's perfect. Simple and brutal. I liked it. I thanked him and stepped into the arena. The moment I entered, dozens of eyes locked onto me. The crowd started buzzing immediately. "Wait, why is there another one? I thought there were 64 candidates. He must be a brand new recruit. Is he suicidal? He probably hasn't even mastered his cultivation technique yet. You only get 1 shot at the evaluation. He's going to regret this. He'll be lucky if he even passes." I ignored the insults. But then, I felt 2 familiar gazes. Lu Yun and Chu Hao were staring at me. "He looks like a freshman from our school," Lu Yun whispered. "I saw him moving equipment after military training." Chu Hao nodded. "I think I saw him in a public lecture. I didn't expect to run into a classmate here." Lu Yun started to walk toward me to say hello, but Chu Hao grabbed her arm. "Don't bother. We've been here a month and haven't seen him once. He must have just joined. He's clearly one of those arrogant kids who thinks awakening makes him the protagonist of the world. His results will be a disaster. Let's just focus on ourselves." He didn't even try to lower his voice. He wanted me to hear it. I looked over at him. His face was full of disdain, looking down on me like I was already a failure. I don't play those games. If someone talks trash to my face, I hit back. I didn't say a word. I just flicked my finger. A sharp blade of energy erupted from my hand. It was so fast that no one in the room could react. It slammed into Chu Hao's chest, shattering his vine armor and sending him flying backward. He hit the ground hard, gasping for air, clutching a jagged wound that had nearly sliced through his protection. "Mind your own business," I said, my voice cold. "We aren't friends. If you can't control your mouth next time, I'll take your teeth." Lu Yun rushed to help him up. When she saw the damage, her eyes widened in shock. She and Chu Hao had tested that armor before. Even her demon blade couldn't leave a mark on it easily. I had nearly destroyed it with a flick of a finger. The vine armor didn't even try to regenerate. It was dead. "Don't you think that's a bit much?" Lu Yun snapped, her anger rising. He only said a few words. I crossed my arms. "Yeah, I'm excessive. So what? What are you going to do about it?" I was tired of people like them. He started it, and I finished it. Lu Yun glared at me, but she didn't move. She knew she couldn't stop that attack any better than he did. She stayed silent, swallowing her pride. Good, I said. Keep it that way. Suddenly, a voice boomed over the speakers. Candidates are forbidden from attacking one another. All candidates, prepare yourselves. The evaluation begins in 5 minutes. The crowd in the stands went wild. Nobody expected a fight before the monsters even showed up. They were all staring at me now, wondering who the hell this newcomer was. The crowd was buzzing. Everyone was stunned by how fast things had escalated. One moment we were standing around, and the next, Chu Hao, the guy with the legendary vine armor, was eating dirt. How did he do that? Someone whispered. He just joined. He looks more like a veteran investigator than a rookie. It has to be his talent, another replied. That power is terrifying. Not everyone was impressed, though. A few people grumbled about my attitude. They called me arrogant. They said I was too aggressive. I didn't care. If they thought I was being too much, they were welcome to step into the arena and try me themselves. The regulars in the stands knew better. They'd seen Chu Hao acting like a king just because he had a magical artifact. He'd spent weeks looking down his nose at everyone, calling other rookies trash. Now, he was curled in a ball, too scared to even look me in the eye. When the gap between two people is small, you feel resentment. You plan your revenge. But when the gap is like the distance between the clouds and the mud, you don't feel revenge. You only feel fear. Chu Hao's confidence was gone. His armor was dead, and without it, he was nothing. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A strange creature, 2 meters tall and looking like a twisted wooden puppet, crawled out from the dirt. It was a herdsman. Chu Hao flinched, taking a half step back. Before, he could just tank hits with his armor and swing wildly. Now, he realized that if one of those things hit him, it was going to hurt. Begin, the broadcast blared. Hundreds of herdsmen charged. I didn't wait. I felt a surge of adrenaline and leaped forward, meeting them head-on. I swung my hand in a wide arc. A 10-meter-long crescent of invisible force tore through the air. It didn't stop until it had sliced a dozen monsters clean in half. I looked for a notification, hoping for loot, but nothing popped up. I felt a pang of disappointment. I guess these summoned trial monsters didn't count as real kills for my system. They were too weak. The crowd erupted as I tore through the pack. Other trainees were inspired, finding their own fighting spirit, but I was in a different league. I moved through the center of the swarm like I was taking a Sunday stroll. Wood chips flew everywhere. Severed branches littered the floor. It was violent, but there was a rhythm to it, an elegance in the carnage. I grabbed one herdsman by the head. I let dozens of tiny slashes erupt from my palm. Its wooden skull disintegrated into sawdust instantly. I tossed the remains aside and sighed. This was too easy. These things were just slightly taller, slightly stronger, and slightly faster than a normal human. To me, they were just targets. 10 minutes in, I glanced at the giant scoreboard. My name was at the top. My kill count had already hit 80. The spectators lost their minds. 80 kills in 10 minutes. Is he even human? He's treating them like he's harvesting cabbages. I don't think anyone has ever put up numbers like that in an evaluation. I need to remember the name Lu Ding. If I ever go on a mission, I want to be on his team. I didn't pay attention to the noise. Across the field, I saw Lu Yun. She was fast, her demon blade flashing as she carved through the monsters. She was good, but her score was barely 30. I was already closing in on 200. I saw her glance at the board, her face flushing red. For weeks, everyone had praised her as the top genius. Now, she was seeing what a real monster looked like. She bit her lip and started fighting harder, finally realizing how much further she had to go. As the clock ticked down, the word evaluation stopped meaning anything to me. This wasn't a test anymore, it was practice. I activated my state of one ability. My focus sharpened until the world slowed down. My slashes became tighter, more surgical, and far more lethal. My combat experience was skyrocketing by the second. Up in the observation room, the high-level bureau officials were leaning against the glass, their eyes wide. Is that state of one? One official asked, breathless. He just awakened yesterday. He hasn't even picked a cultivation technique yet, and he's already hitting that level of mental clarity? Look at the data, another added. If a normal trainee's combat power is a 1, this kid is at least a 30. Once he finishes this state of enlightenment, his slashes will be even stronger. He'll hit 100. They started laughing, realizing they had scouted a freak of nature. He's going to get a perfect score. He'll get the aperture pill tonight and break into the second realm immediately. By tomorrow, he'll be at 1,000. He's doing in one day what takes most people 10 years. Down on the floor, I finished my last rotation. I was leaving everyone in the dust, and I was just getting started. The officials in the observation room couldn't stop laughing. They realized they had a monster on their hands, a guy with combat power far exceeding a veteran investigator, yet technically still a trainee. It was like sending a pro athlete to compete in a middle school gym class. It was a total slaughter, but rules were rules. To become a full member, I had to complete 10 missions or kill 10 monsters. That was the law set by the founders, and no one could change it. To the management, I was a hungry wolf about to be dropped into a pen full of sheep. As the evaluation ended, I finally pulled myself out of the state of one. I looked up at the giant screen and saw my score sitting at the very top, creating a massive gap between me and everyone else. The officials watching me felt a pang of regret seeing me leave that trance-like state. They wished I could have stayed in it forever. They didn't realize that for me, entering that state of enlightenment wasn't a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. I could step into it whenever I wanted. The final rankings flashed on the screen. I was the only one with a perfect score. 10 people hit excellent, including Lu Yun. Poor Chu Hao only managed a standard grade. Usually, he would have been in the top tier, but my earlier attack had shredded his vine armor. Without his defense, he had been too timid to fight properly. He kept his head down, looking crushed. He didn't even dare to hate me. He'd felt the sheer pressure of my blade from across the hall, and the memory of it still made his skin crawl. He stole a glance at me, but I didn't even look his way. To me, he was just a footnote. Once the crowd dispersed, I went to collect my reward, an aperture pill. It was a small, green pill sealed in a wax-covered box. I remembered reading about this on the 749 app. It was incredibly rare and packed with pure, gentle energy. Its purpose was simple but vital. It helped a practitioner break through all the physical apertures in their body, pushing them straight into the profound realm. Cultivation starts with the aperture realm. We have 365 pressure points that correspond to the stars in the sky. Clearing them connects you to the world's natural flow. After that comes the profound realm, where those points condense into energy centers to store chi. Then comes the spirit sea, where everything merges into a vast ocean of power. To climb this ladder, you need talent and, more importantly, resources. I felt a surge of relief that I'd joined the Bureau. If I were doing this alone, I'd be lost. Here, I got high-grade pills just for showing up, and I could trade mission points for legendary treasures later. It was the best decision I ever made. What are you thinking about, Lu Ding? I snapped out of my daze. Standing there was Deng Guofu, the man in charge of the rewards. He was smiling at me with genuine warmth. Nothing, sir. Just, thank you, I replied. The staff nearby chuckled. They told me Minister Deng handled logistics for the Yunhai branch. In a cultivation novel, this guy would be the Grand Elder of the Hidden Library. He controlled every manual, every pill, and every scrap of resource for the trainees. He was a powerhouse in his own right. Thank you, Minister Deng, I said, correcting myself quickly. Quick learner, aren't you? He laughed. He seemed kind, reminding me of the orphanage director who raised me, or a friendly neighborhood grandpa. He had that aura of someone who had seen it all. Have you picked a cultivation technique yet? Not yet, I admitted. I was going to head over there now. Perfect. I'm heading back to the logistics department myself. Come with me. I might have a few suggestions. This was a huge deal. Trainees usually had to sift through hundreds of manuals alone, often picking something that didn't fit. But because I performed so well, I was getting the VIP treatment. We walked and talked, and I told him a bit about my life growing up as an orphan. He patted my shoulder. You've got grit, kid. If I had a grandson, I'd hope he turned out half as tough as you. We arrived at the logistics building, a structure shaped like an open book. Inside, the shelves were overflowing with scrolls, books, and records. It was overwhelming. I wandered over to the trainee section and picked up a manual called the Ape Arm Method. It was for people with long limbs, focusing on wide, sweeping strikes. I looked at my arms, not a match. Then I saw the Scorch script, which used ghost fire to temper the body. It sounded cool, but I wasn't sold. Seeing me struggle, Minister Deng walked over and handed me an ancient, weathered scroll. Try this one. The moment I unrolled it, a wave of ancient pressure hit me. I heard a deafening roar in my ears. For a split second, I saw a hallucination, a massive, terrifying bear with wings on its back, lunging at me. I instinctively raised my arms to block, only to realize it was just an image. The vibe of this manual was off the charts. The drawing showed a winged bear standing atop a mountain of bones, roaring at the sky. It was brutal. This is the flying bear visualization, Deng explained. The legend says the flying bear is an ancient beast. In the north, it's a monster that kills for sport. In the south, it's a guardian spirit that maintains order. Unlike a standard manual, everyone sees something different in this map. It depends on your path. He didn't have to say another word. I knew this was the one. This manual was on another level. It made the techniques on the library shelves look like children's toys. I didn't hesitate. I rolled the scroll back up and looked at Minister Deng. "I'll listen to you," I said. "I'm choosing this one." Deng burst into a loud laugh. "You're a smart kid. Take it. It's been sitting here gathering dust for far too long anyway. Now go. Time is money, so don't waste a second of it. Just remember, when you visualize the flying bear, take the aperture pill at the same time. It'll help you absorb the energy perfectly." "Thank you, Minister," I said, giving him a respectful bow. I was itching to see what this flying bear was really about. People always talked about tigers with wings, but a bear with wings? I wanted to see if it could actually outmatch a tiger. Deng waved me off with a satisfied nod. As I walked away, I heard him muttering to himself about how the recruiters must have messed up my files. He couldn't understand why they labeled me as violent when I seemed so polite and sensible. He walked back to the shelf, ripped off the label for the flying bear visualization, and sighed. That single scroll was worth 500 contribution points. I headed back to my new home, a 200-square-meter private dorm. I spread the scroll out on the coffee table, popped the aperture pill into my mouth, and swallowed. Immediately, I activated my skills, taste of oblivion and unity of heaven and man. Warm currents erupted from my heart, surging through my veins and flooding my entire body. The drawing of the flying bear began to shift and blur before my eyes. Suddenly, I wasn't in my room anymore. I was standing on the peak of a jagged mountain range. Above me, the winged bear let out a roar that tore through the clouds. The sound echoed for hundreds of miles, shaking the very earth. To the south, beasts shrieked in terror. To the north, dust clouds rose as thousands of animals fled for their lives. The flying bear stood at the summit, glanced toward the south, and then beat its massive wings. It tore through the northern sky, leaving nothing but a storm of blood and chaos in its wake. My eyes snapped open. I was back on my sofa, drenched in sweat. 2 days had passed while I was in that trance. My energy gates were wide open. I had broken through straight into the profound realm. A violent, oppressive aura radiated from me, feeling like a tidal wave ready to crush anything that dared to challenge me. This was what I had learned, the flying bear decimation method. It wasn't a defensive style. It was a technique built for pure destruction and slaughter. The chi swirling inside me felt aggressive, hungry, and powerful. Minister Deng really did me a huge favor. I made a mental note to remember this debt. I stood up and stretched, my bones popping like firecrackers. I checked my phone. 2 days gone, but my combat power had skyrocketed. It was time to take my first real mission for the Bureau. I opened the 749 app and saw my status had already been updated. I scrolled through the mission board until a title caught my eye. The 8/16 Massacre Investigation. On August 16th, a family of 6 in the Xinhua district was wiped out. The local reports were gruesome. The victims had been torn apart, but the most disturbing detail was that their faces had been peeled off while they were still alive. The Bureau suspected a black old lady, a spirit that usually manifests after a black bear achieves cultivation and sheds its physical body. These spirits were known for their cruelty and their habit of eating human faces. A bear spirit? I looked at my hands, feeling the flying bear energy pulsing under my skin. What a coincidence. The rewards were solid. 20 contribution points and 100,000 yuan for the lead investigator. If we captured it alive, there was a bonus. The app recommended that the lead be at least at the profound realm. I checked the shop and saw that a high-grade lightning wood charm, something that could ward off evil and was harder than steel, only cost 5 points. One contribution point could be traded for 100,000 yuan, but I wasn't a fool. Points were far more valuable than cash. There was one catch. Bureau rules required at least 2 people permission for safety and oversight. I didn't know anyone here yet, so I just threw a recruitment post onto the internal forum. Intern Lu Ding here. Looking for a partner. Priority to anyone with a brain. I don't care about your combat stats. Just make sure you can protect yourself and handle the grunt work. The forum exploded instantly. At first, people were annoyed by my arrogant tone. Who does this guy think he is? One comment read. But then, someone pointed out my ID. The mood shifted immediately. Oh, it's Brother Lu? Sorry, I wasn't awake yet. I'll slap myself twice for the disrespect. My name had become legendary over the last 2 days. Everyone knew about the intern who demanded an evaluation on day 1 and crushed it. I was a rising star, a mission carry. If you followed me, you just had to do what you were told and collect free points. Within seconds, I had dozens of applications. I scrolled through them and picked an intern named Yin Fifan. I sent him a message. Do you have a car? That was the most important thing. I knew how to drive, but I didn't have a license in this world yet. Yin Fifan replied almost instantly, clearly shocked I chose him. Yes, I have a Jeep. It's tough, and I'm a great driver. Fine. Meet me at base exit A. I'll be there soon. Across the base, in a 4-man dorm, Yin Fifan let out a victory scream. His roommate threw a pillow at him, telling him to shut up, but Yin didn't care. He scrambled into his shoes, grabbed his keys, and bolted out the door with a massive grin on his face. I was waiting by the road when he pulled up. I had my arms crossed, wearing plain clothes, but I could feel the strength radiating from my new cultivation. Yin jumped out of the driver's seat and ran around to open the door for me. Brother Lu. I'm Yin Fifan. I didn't say much. I just hopped into the passenger seat and nodded. It was time to hunt a bear. Yin Fifan jogged around the Jeep, hopped back into the driver's seat, and handed me a bottle of water. He was eager, eyes bright with excitement. Brother Lu, what's our move? He asked. On the way over, I checked the case details. There are 3 main suspects. I leaned back, unscrewing the cap of the water. Go on. First is Tong Yong, Yin Fifan said, ticking a finger. He's 21, a junior at Yunhai Computer Vocational College. His family used to be neighbors with the victims back in Yangjiao village. Years ago, Tong Yong's father got into a fight with the victim's family and lost. A few years later, the father died. There's a potential motive for revenge there. He didn't stop. Second is Zhao Haichuan, 52. He's the ex-husband of one of the victims, Wu Daoxiang. He went to prison for drugs years ago, which is why she divorced him and remarried Zhou Shenghua. Ever since he got out, he's been harassing the family for money. And the third? I asked. Fan Wurwei, 24. He's the ex-boyfriend of the daughter, Zhou Lian. He works at an auto repair shop. Apparently, Zhou Lian's father hated him and even beat him up once to keep them apart. Other than these 3, the family was pretty quiet. No other enemies. I took a sip of water, feeling impressed. This was exactly what I wanted in an assistant. He was proactive, he did his homework, and he was smart. What's your take on them? I challenged him. Well, Yin Fifan started, warming up to the topic. I used process of elimination. I think Tong Yong is the most likely suspect. Fan Wurwei has a decent family, even if he's a bit of a rebel. He's worked at his uncle's shop for years. He's a low-level worker, but he doesn't seem like the type with the guts to slaughter a whole family. Plus, he and Zhou Lian were actually in love for 3 years. It's hard to imagine him being that brutal to her. He paused to catch his breath. Then there's Zhao Haichuan. He's a parasite. He just wanted money, and the family usually gave him some just to make him go away. Killing them would cut off his cash flow. It's too much risk for a guy who just wants his next fix. So why Tong Yong? The school reports, Yin Fifan said firmly. He's a loner, with no friends. Good grades. But in high school, he almost killed a guy in a fight. That's why he didn't get into a top university. He looks honest on the outside, but there's a streak of extreme violence in him. Also, considering the black old lady's spirit involvement, Zhao Haichuan is too old and weak for a possession. Besides, the police report says he was busy at a brothel when the crime happened. He's currently in custody for that. That leaves the two young guys. And between a grieving ex-boyfriend and a cold-blooded loner with a grudge, my money is on Tong Yong. He finished his analysis and looked at me, waiting for my judgment. I nodded. His logic was sound. Let's find this Tong Yong, I said. If he was possessed by the black old lady, or even just touched by her, I'll be able to smell it. My flying bear soul wasn't just for show. It was a predator that hunted other monsters for sport. Tracking was its specialty. Originally, I planned to check all three suspects, but Yin Fifin's breakdown might have just saved me a lot of time. Yin Fifin's face lit up. He slammed his foot on the gas, and the Jeep roared forward. Every few minutes, he'd sneak a glance at me like he couldn't believe he was actually working with a legend. What did you do before this? I asked, breaking the silence. Your analysis is professional. He turned a bit red. I was just a student. I watch a lot of movies. Documentaries, thrillers, everything. It's my only hobby. I know movies aren't real, but the logic usually applies to life. I smiled. It reminded me of a movie back in my old world where a film buff used his knowledge to cover up a crime and outsmart the police. I had stumbled upon a real talent. What's your awakened talent? I asked. He scratched his forehead, looking a bit embarrassed. It's wall walking. I can pass through solid objects. Interesting, I said. How did that happen? I was at home when a supernatural event hit. A wall literally tried to eat me. I panicked, tried to run, and accidentally slipped right through it. That's when I awakened. I can go through floors too, I guess. Can you tunnel through the earth? I mean, technically yes, he muttered. But I can't swim. I'm terrified of sinking into water. I almost drowned when I was a kid. I burst out laughing. Fine. Work hard and learn how to swim. If you do well on this mission, I'll take you on the next one. His eyes practically sparkled. He knew he wasn't a fighter or a top-tier scout, and he'd only passed the evaluation by being clever. But I liked his personality. He was a bit timid, which meant he wouldn't go rogue, and his power was incredibly useful for utility work. Really, Brother Liu? I know I'm kind of useless in a fight. I don't need you to fight, I told him. If it gets to the point where I need you to jump in, we're probably both dead anyway. He laughed, feeling the tension lift. Soon, we pulled up to a bubble tea shop at a busy intersection. We're here, Yin Fifin said. Tong Yong works here part-time. As soon as I stepped out of the Jeep, a faint, sickly stench hit my nose. It was the smell of rotting fish and old blood. We walked inside, but I didn't see anyone matching Tong Yong's description. Yin Fifin didn't skip a beat. He walked up to the counter and ordered 2 lemon teas. Hey, he said to the girl working the counter, flashing a friendly smile. Where's that guy who was working here the other day? He was really good at mashing the lemons. I feel bad seeing a girl like you doing all the heavy lifting. I had to hand it to him. He was smooth. If he had asked directly, she might have been suspicious. By framing it as a complaint about the workload, he got her to talk. The girl sighed, looking annoyed as she pounded the lemons. You mean Tong Yong? He quit. The store policy says you're supposed to give 2 weeks' notice, the girl behind the counter grumbled. She slammed the muddler into a pile of lemons with enough force to crack the counter. But he just quit yesterday. Just walked out. Now I'm stuck here doing everything alone. Orders, drinks, cleaning, it's a nightmare. She looked like she wanted to vent all her frustration on those poor lemons. Yin Fifin didn't miss a beat. He leaned against the counter, wearing a look of pure sympathy. That's just not right, Yin Fifin said, shaking his head. No respect for the rules. And honestly, I can't believe he'd leave a beautiful girl like you to do all this heavy lifting. Here, let me buy you a drink to make up for his rudeness. Put it on my tab. Before she could even protest, he tapped his phone and paid for an extra tea. The girl blushed, her expression softening instantly. Oh, you don't have to do that. We aren't really allowed to accept drinks from customers. It's just a tea, Yin Fifin insisted with a smooth smile. Someone as pretty as you deserves it. If you can't drink it now, save it for after work. I'm sure there's a line of guys waiting to take you out anyway. That guy, what was his name? Tong Yong. He clearly didn't know how lucky he was to work next to you. Yin Fifin was a natural. He was good-looking, charismatic, and knew exactly what to say. The girl was completely hooked. Oh, please, she giggled, leaning in closer. He didn't even look at me. Yesterday, when he left, I saw him talking to this gorgeous woman in a sports car. A real high-end ride. I thought he was a struggling worker like me, but I guess he's just some rich kid out here experiencing the real world. She finished our lemon teas and handed them over, her eyes lingering on Yin Fifan before darting over to me. I hadn't said a word, but I could feel her gaze. Between Yin Fifan's charm and whatever vibe I was putting off, we were quite the pair. She clearly wanted Yin Fifan to ask for her number, but he just turned and walked away, already buried in his phone. Back in the Jeep, Yin Fifan started scrolling rapidly. Brother Lou, I had the Bureau's tech support pull the street cams. I tracked the car that picked up Tong Yong. I leaned back, impressed. Recruiting this guy was the best decision I'd made so far. He was proactive, fast, and anticipated everything I needed before I even asked. It was a hell of a lot easier than doing the legwork myself. What did you find? I asked. The car is registered to the Jishur group, he said, not looking up from the screen. The driver was Ji Feiyu, the eldest daughter of the family. The Sky Eye system caught the meeting at the Old Mountain Market back on August 17th. There's more. Ji Feiyu has a younger sister, Ji Yinshuang, who's been sick. The hospitals say she's fine, but the family brought in a Chinese medicine doctor who claims her yang energy is depleted. They've been hunting for rare, illegal herbs at the market to treat her. He paused, his eyes narrowing. And get this. On August 18th, the day of the Xinhua apartment massacre, Tong Yong was brought in as a suspect. But Ji Feiyu showed up personally to bail him out. He had an alibi, so they let him go. I felt a chill. The Bureau's reach was terrifying. They could dig up a person's entire life history in minutes. It gets better, Yin Fifan continued, his voice rising with excitement. The chairman of Jishur Group, Ji Hong, just hired a real-deal spirit medium to check on his daughter today. Brother Lou, if I didn't know better, I'd say Tong Yong is living out a classic urban fantasy novel. I raised an eyebrow. Go on. Think about it, Yin Fifan said, gesturing wildly. If Tong Yong really has that black old lady spirit on him, he would have seen the dark energy clinging to Ji Feiyu from her sister. He probably pointed it out to impress her. Then, she bails him out of jail, proving she trusts him. Now, she's bringing him home to save her sister. Today, this other medium shows up, but he won't be a match for the spirit Tong Yong is carrying. Tong Yong will swoop in, defeat the fake, save the girl, and earn the family's eternal gratitude. He'll get money, fame, and probably both sisters. It's the perfect hero setup. That guy is a total prick. I looked at him, surprised by the depth of his theory. You've thought about this a lot, haven't you? He scratched his head, looking a bit embarrassed. I used to read a lot of those web novels. The plot is so cliché, I could see it coming a mile away. You probably think I'm crazy. No, I said, shaking my head. I think you're a damn genius. I never would have connected those dots. Yin Fifan beamed. It's just lazy writing on his part. He's probably read the same books. He's getting cocky. He thinks because he has a little power, he's the protagonist of the world. He forgot that the government has people like us to handle protagonists like him. I grinned. In that case, let's go watch the show. We'll wait until he's at his peak, right when he thinks he's won. Then I'll step in and take him down. Reality is about to hit him like a freight train. Yin Fifan slammed his foot on the gas, a mischievous smirk on his face. Brother Lou, you're mean. I love it. He caught himself and quickly added, I mean, you're cool. Like a high-tier villain crushing a brainless hero. I'm like your evil advisor. He let out a ridiculous, over-the-top villain laugh. Keek keek. Stop that. I laughed, shaking my head. What the hell was the noise? Just drive. The villainous laughter from Yin Fifan was enough to give me goosebumps. I told him to shut up and just drive. On the other side of town, inside the Ji family luxury villa, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Two people stood facing each other in the center of the room. One was a young man dressed in white, looking clean-cut and refined. This was my target, Dong Yong. Originally, Dong Yong was just an ordinary guy. But after he formed a spiritual bond with the black old lady's spirit, the spiritual energy washing through his body had refined his features. In this world, once you become a cultivator, your confidence skyrockets and your physical appearance improves naturally. He looked like the hero of a story. Standing opposite him was Bai Xiao Xiao, a spirit medium invited by the Ji Group's chairman, Ji Hong. In this business, competitors are enemies. The air between them was freezing. Chairman Ji, What is the meaning of this? Bai Xiao snapped, looking annoyed. You invited me, but then you brought in insurance? Do you not trust the methods of the Bai family? In the world of spirit mediums, the 5 great immortal families, fox, weasel, hedgehog, snake, and rat, rule the north. The fox family is the most powerful and well-connected. If a fox spirit backs your haul, you have a major reputation. The weasels are masters of illusions. The hedgehog family, which Bai Xiao represented, specialized in healing. The snakes were the warriors, and the rats were experts at divination and avoiding bad luck. Jihong looked awkward. Miss Bai, it's not that I don't trust you. My daughter didn't know I had already contacted you, so she invited this young man. I'm truly sorry. She turned to Dong Yong with an apologetic expression. Mr. Dong, I'm so sorry for the confusion. Here is 500,000 yuan for your trouble. Dong Yong didn't touch the money. He kept his expression cold and detached. I don't take money if I haven't done the work, he said calmly. I can leave, but if you have to call me back later, the price won't be the same. Bai Xiao's eyes narrowed. Are you suggesting I can't cure the second miss of the Ji family? Dong Yong let out a mocking laugh. You're just a little girl who still smells of her mother's milk. Go back and practice for a few more years. The spirit on your back isn't strong enough to handle what's in this house. Not far away in the jeep, Yin Fifan was holding up a bronze mirror. It was acting like a surveillance screen, showing us everything happening inside the villa. Look at this guy, Brother Liu. Yin Fifan groaned, unable to stop himself from complaining. He's acting so smug. Smells of her mother's milk. Where did he learn these cheesy lines? He's probably never even been in a real fight. He's acting like he's some ancient grandmaster. It's so punchable. If you've got the skills, just do it. If you don't, stop acting like a god. I watched the screen, and I had to agree. This guy was overacting even more than I did. If I didn't know better, I'd think he was some world-class expert. But I was more interested in the mirror. Where did you get that? It's pretty useful. Oh, this? I traded some merit points for it at the bureau, Yin Fifan explained. It's a low-level artifact. It's only good for monitoring the surroundings. If someone is way stronger than me, they'll notice it immediately. I mostly use it to check for danger, so I can phase through a wall and run away if things get hairy. The guy was a total coward. Once I realized the mirror had such limited use, I lost interest and looked back at the screen. The conflict inside was reaching a breaking point. Bai Xiao was fuming. Fine. Since you think I'm unqualified, let's have a contest. Whoever cures the second miss wins. If I win, you crawl out of here on all fours. If I lose, you can ask for whatever you want. Suddenly, the sound of high heels clicking against the floor echoed through the hall. A woman in a tight-fitting long skirt walked into the frame. She had a perfect figure, framed by a pair of rimless glasses that gave her an air of sophisticated charm. Every eye in the room turned toward her. Dong Yong shifted, sliding his hands into his pockets with a cool, detached air. Fine. I accept. Ladies first. I'll let you go first. Brother Liu. Yin Fifan cried out, clutching his chest. Can we please go in now and just punch him? My skin is crawling. Ladies first. He's like a peacock trying to show off his tail feathers. I can't take the cringe anymore. I couldn't take it either. I had planned to watch a bit longer, but Dong Yong's protagonist act was making my skin itch. My toes were literally curling in my shoes. Let's go. We both kicked our doors open at the same time and charged toward the villa. Inside, Ji Feiyu was losing his patience. He was the eldest son of the Ji family, and while he respected people with special abilities, seeing them use his sister's illness as a gambling chip made his blood boil. He had been polite, offering huge sums of money for a cure, but this was getting ridiculous. He saw the anger on his father's face too. Everyone, Ji Feiyu sighed. Can we please just start? Dong Yong pulled one hand out of his pocket and gestured forward with a calm, arrogant grace. After you. Boom. A massive explosion rocked the room as the wall behind them shattered. A silhouette burst through the dust like a literal monster. To the people in the room, it looked like a terrifying, winged beast was lunging at them. I didn't give Dong Yong a chance to react. My hand shot out like lightning, grabbing him by the throat in the middle of his cool pose. I slammed him into the expensive marble floor with enough force to shatter the tiles, then hoisted him back up into the air by his neck. After you, my ass. I growled, my face inches from his. Do you have any idea how cringy you are? I was listening outside and I almost died of embarrassment. You really think you're something special, don't you? Blood leaked from Dong Yong's nose and mouth. I had held back, but the impact was still enough to take the fight out of him instantly. Who? Who are you? He wheezed. I'm the guy sending you to the afterlife, I said. Your secret is out, Dong Yong. Tell that black old lady inside you to come out and play. Inside Dong Yong's mind, the spirit was screaming in terror. Asterisk no. No. I'm not going out there. It's a flying bear. He's a flying bear. Asterisk. The black old lady was a bear spirit who had lived for many years, but her talent was mediocre. She had reached her limit, which is why she abandoned her physical body to find a host. Even if she still had her body, she would be nothing against me. My flying bear cultivation style was essentially the ancestor of her entire species, a brutal, predatory force that specialized in tearing spirits like her apart. Dong Yong felt his confidence shatter. He had always thought he was the main character of a novel. Since the black old lady entered his body, he believed he was destined for greatness. She had whispered in his ear, telling him how powerful they were. Emboldened by that ego, he had gone out and murdered a family of 6 just because of an old grudge his father had. He thought he was untouchable. He thought he was the hero. He was wrong. Dong Yong stared at me with wide, trembling eyes. He realized the game was up. He never expected someone to actually come knocking on his door so soon. I'll turn myself in, he stammered, his voice cracking. Please, don't kill me. I surrender. I let out a cold laugh. Yen Fifan stood beside me, his expression full of contempt. You idiot, Yen Fifan said, shaking his head. What were you doing before this? You were strutting through the streets like a king, pretending to be some miracle healer. Now that you're caught, you want to surrender? He turned to me with a grin. Brother Liu, what do you think? It's too late, I said. My voice was flat, devoid of mercy. I gave you a chance to go out with dignity. You didn't listen. Now, we play by my rules. The people in the room watched in absolute horror. I didn't hesitate. I gripped Dong Yong, and with a surge of raw strength, I ripped his body in two. Blood sprayed across the floor. As his life faded, a plume of thick black smoke erupted from the corpse. It shifted and twisted, forming the shape of a massive black bear. The spirit tried to bolt for the exit, its voice echoing with pure terror. Flying bear. A flying bear, it screamed. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Don't kill me. Please. I raised my palm. A sharp, violent gust of wind swept through the room, cutting through the air like a blade. Shatter, I whispered. The word wasn't loud, but it resonated in the silence of the villa. The fleeing black bear's spirit froze. In an instant, it was sliced into 1,000 tiny fragments. It didn't even have time for a final scream before it vanished into nothingness. A notification chimed in my mind. The containment was successful. I had captured the black old lady spirit. The reward flashed before my eyes. Power of the bear's skin. I checked the details. The power of the bear's skin granted me the strength of 1,000 June. I did the math quickly. 1 June was about 30 pounds. 1,000 June meant 30,000 pounds of raw force. It sounded impressive, but I couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. A tractor back in the countryside could probably pull 2 golden cudgels. I sighed to myself. I guess I'd just have to make do. It was better than nothing. Small gains eventually add up. If any body-refining cultivators had heard my internal monologue, they would have choked on their own spit. 30,000 pounds of strength was a dream for most. People spent decades training and consuming priceless treasures just to reach a fraction of that power. And here I was, comparing myself to a tractor. Yen Fifan stepped forward and handed me a silk handkerchief with both hands. I took it and wiped the blood from my fingers. He then pulled out a stack of non-disclosure agreements and walked over to the 3 people who were paralyzed with fear. He narrowed his eyes, his tone turning professional yet threatening. Bureau 749 Business, Yen Fifan said. Sign these. If a single word about today leaks out, you'll face full legal consequences. And I don't mean a fine. I mean the kind of prison you never walk out of. No bail, no exceptions. He looked at the villa owner. Chairman G, don't worry. Someone will be by later to discuss compensation for the mess. You'll be satisfied. The sound of Yen Fifan's voice snapped by Xiao Xiao out of her trance. She let out a piercing, jagged scream that echoed through the villa. "If you scream again, I'll tear you apart too," I snapped. Bai Xiaoxiao's voice died in her throat instantly. Her face went deathly pale. She clapped her shaking hands over her mouth, her eyes wide with terror. She was a cultivator herself and knew about Bureau 749, but she had never seen an investigator this brutal. This wasn't a standard arrest. This was a slaughter. Don't you people usually contain and imprison them?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I looked at her. Contain and imprison? If I did that, where would my rewards come from? Why would I waste my time for a few measly contribution points and a small paycheck? That would be missing the point entirely. I joined the Bureau for their information network. I needed them to find monsters for me to kill, not to play warden. Maybe other people do that, I said. I'm different. I don't like leaving things alive. Bai Xiaoxiao swallowed hard. She tried to look at me, but every time our eyes met, she flinched and looked at the floor. She was terrified of even catching my gaze. Chairman Ji was a man who had seen his fair share of storms in the business world, but even he was struggling to keep his composure. He looked at me, his body shaking, trying to find the words to speak.